Okay, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the rear brake system on my Royal Enfield Interceptor. Of course, a couple weeks ago I reported having the infamous rear brake failure, and I rebled the brakes and they went back to working. Everything's been fine. It still has the usual dead wooden feel. I mean, when I did my initial review of this bike, I described the brakes as adequate. And that's really what they are, is adequate. I'm going to attempt to improve the rear brake stopping power. I haven't had any problem with the front brake, so I'll probably just leave that alone. There's a company called RS Tech. They make belt drives and brake upgrades, front brake upgrades for Royal Enfields. And they had on their Facebook page a description of how to upgrade the rear brakes using a Triumph Street Triple R rear caliper, which is made by Brembo, which apparently slides right into place, and it certainly looks like it does. It looks like it will bolt directly on. You can use interchange. This brake caliper fits more than just the Street Triple R, so you can look for different versions of it. Of course, the Brembo brake master cylinder has the switch on it here. This one uses an M6 by 1.25 thread, whereas my new Brembo PS12 master cylinder uses a more common M6 by 1.0 thread. So I had to get a new brake light switch with the correct threading on it as well. I'm going to install these parts. It's a good day. Had a nice day at a motorcycle car truck and motorcycle show yesterday. Did good with the old Yamaha there. I've even got my toolbox cleaned off, so we can start some more work. The rest of my shop is still a mess, but at least my toolbox and my workbench here are cleaned off and ready to go. So let's tear into this thing and see what it takes. Okay, I've got my old brake carrier loose. I didn't have to remove the wheel completely, just back the axle out enough I could slide the brake caliper off. As you can see here, I have the Brembo off of the Triumph on the right and the original Brembo brake caliper on the left. As you can see, the piston in the one on the right is slightly larger in diameter, which will give more braking force when paired with the right master cylinder. However, if you look at the two of them side by side, you can see they have all the same mounting points. The bleeder screw is pointed in the same direction, and so is the banjo bolt. This will literally slide directly onto the original caliper bracket. So that makes this change very easy. Like I said, a lot of differences are the threads on the banjo bolt are a finer thread, and nobody really seems to know for sure where the air keeps getting into these systems. Some people think it's through the bleeder screw. Some think it's through the banjo bolt, and others seem to think it's coming through the brake light switch, which is a standard 2-wire brake light switch. I haven't got to the other end of it yet to see what it's made like, but I have connector sets here and all that, so I can install anything on anything if I put my mind to it. But this looks like it'll definitely be a good upgrade. And as an added bonus, the pads are identical. So when you go to get replacement pads, you can still order the pads for your Royal Enfield and get the right thing, or when you go to upgrade. I'm going to cut away from the video a minute and get back to work. And I'll show you what I'm doing next. Well, as you can see, I've got the axle slid back through, the wheel on. Everything's in place right here. Before I go any further, I want to show you one of the best things about these bikes. And that is just how easy it is to change the brake pads. To change the brake pads, you see I've got one in here already. Through the pin, you just insert them. Insert it all the way in. Make sure it's all the way into the front here. Then you'll know when you get it all the way in. Because once you get everything lined up, the pin will slide right through. Right into place. And then, it's just a matter of locking in the retaining clip that goes right in here. Okay, we got everything fitted up here. Got the chain adjusted. Initially, I wasn't going to do this. I wasn't going to bleed the brake pedal or anything like that. But just for giggles, I spun the wheel a couple of times and then hit the brake lever. And with about 2 pumps, it pumped up and was working. So I only had to crack the bleeder screw 2 or 3 times and now it's perfectly functional. It was actually much easier to bleed and get going from a completely empty caliper than the original one was. I'm still going to go change out the master cylinder. But anyhow, what I did here, just for shits and giggles, I put the original BMW caliper off of the Enfield onto this Triumph carrier, so you can see how well they fit together, and also you can see what I was saying about how simple it is to change the brake pads. You don't even have to remove the caliper from the bike, which is wonderful. I know I said I wanted Nissan brakes to start with because I really like and trust Japanese technology, but those Italians might be on to something with this brake design. I just think it's better when it's actually made in Italy. So anyhow, the next step will be to change this out. The Triumph part number for this caliper is T2021397. That's according to the RS Tech Facebook post and from my experience, because that's what I got. And it fits perfectly. It works fine. Even the brake pads interchange. So now, let's move on to the next thing. We're going to install a 12mm rear Brembo master cylinder. Okay, the rear caliper swap went swimmingly well. So let's get on to the master cylinder. Let's take these 2 screws out, this out, slide the whole thing down. The brake switch wire here, as you can see, I've already pulled the side cover off, and I didn't know if I'd need it or not, so I went ahead and pulled the seat off, which the seat latch is just knob right here. But the wire comes up right here and goes to a connector in here that I'm wiggling around. It'll be a little bit of a pain to reach, but we'll get this all pulled off right quick. Okay, here you can see I've got the cover off. I put 1 screw back in it so that I could loosen this. I pulled the wire out. I wound up taking this plate loose and setting it up here out the way so I could get to the brake light switch wire better, because it's kind of hard to reach in there with my big old hands. But anyhow, I got the connector out. So while I got this held in place, I'll go ahead and break this banjo bolt loose. There we go. Then I will take the reservoir out. Then we'll pull the whole thing off. Okay, here's a quick look. I'll show you how the new master cylinder compares to the other one. Both of them have 40mm mounting points. The top is exit is in about the same place. Down here on the bottom, everything is pretty close. The hose for the rear comes off the back for the reservoir. So yeah, this should work out, bolt right on. The only real difference here, of course, well, besides one's the obvious build quality, I don't know if you can see the thread differences or not. The Brembo uses a fine thread, while the Bobry master cylinder uses a coarse thread. Of course, the same thing applied to the calipers as well. Let's get this changed out and see how it works. Okay, I got to finish running the wiring and hooking everything up. One of the things you'll have to do when you're adding this to your Royal Enfield, a Brembo caliper, you'll have to make your own brake caliper push rod. This is a stainless steel M6 by 1.0 bolt. I started with one that was 90mm in length, and then I just carefully measured it so that it would fit up in here. And then I'll put the clevis on it in a minute and see how much adjustment we have. If I have to, I can always take it back out and take a little more off. Well, that wasn't too bad. I think the worst part about it was rerouting the wires for the new brake light switch, which of course weren't long enough and didn't have a matching plug on them anyway, so I had to extend them. So to do that, I just used some of these, which are the heat shrink solder seal wires, connectors. They work great. And then I just covered the thing with some heat shrink tubing. My fresh, all new .4 fluid in it. I did wind up using a vacuum brake bleeder. It's so much easier. I'll put a link to one you can buy in the description. It's well worth your money if you're tinkering with stuff like this. Brake pedal. It has a much shorter throw. Before, even when this bike was new, on my initial review of this bike, I posted that the brakes were adequate. The brake pedal would go down like this before it would actually grab, which was kind of disconcerting. Once I got used to it, it was fine. But then the brakes quit working. I'll go ahead and tell y'all, I thought the whole brake thing was just another one of those rare problems. This bike is 3 years old. I just had the brake failure. I'm still running all the original relays and even the original battery, although I may have jinxed myself. Although I have a full set of new relays for it just in case. And I was planning to swap a lithium battery into it the second this one died anyway, so that's not a big deal. But yeah, the rear brake thing is kind of a pain. This is the part number for the master cylinder that I used. It's connected right up to the infield reservoir. It has a 40mm mount spacing. Like I said, the threading is different because these, like everybody else's but Bobry's brakes, use fine thread. Like I said, this caliper back here was exactly the same, except the piston is 2mm larger. And it just seems to work a lot better, despite the fact that it's way older than the rest of the bike because it came off of a late 90s or early 2000s Triumph. But hey, I'm pleased with it. Time to take it down and take it for a ride. Okay, I got my helmet, got my gloves, got my boots on, all that good stuff. Let's take this thing for a quick ride around the block and see how well the new rear brakes perform. That's been a much bigger improvement than I expected so far. It stops much better. And I can actually stop the bike just using the rear brake now. That was a lot of fun. That was also a much better improvement than I was expecting. I just wanted to fix the brakes. As I said, my first opinion of this bike is the brakes are adequate. I love riding this motorcycle. It suits my style. Classic feel. Classic vibes without being enough to be painful once I got the handlebar sorted out. You know, those little things you have to do to it, that's to be expected from a cheap motorcycle. Actually, I have found that that's to be expected from any motorcycle. It don't matter whether you pay $6,000 for it or $60,000 for it, it's going to have some teething pains. That being said, the rear brake failure was a little bit of a letdown. That's the kind of thing that shouldn't have happened. But I was looking at the RS Tech Facebook page. I was planning to get one of their belt drive conversions for this bike one day. I just have some other things that I have to finish before I can commit to that much work. And it looks like they're going to quit making them, so I don't know if I'll ever get one. But anyhow, the rear brakes work good. I would say they're probably 75 to 100% better than they were even when this bike was brand new. The Brembo caliper, which is 2 millimeters, the piston is 2 millimeters larger than the Bybri, and the Brembo master cylinder works good. I put a longer push rod in it that holds the brake pedal up. I also was able to bend this brake pedal outward a little bit to get it clear, because I actually like my brake pedal a lot higher sitting than this one was from the factory. I also adjusted the gear shifter up too for that same reason. But yeah, so yeah, the rear brake modifications on the Royal Enfield 650s are well worth it. Put you a nice Brembo caliper and a Brembo master cylinder on it, and everything, you get the right part numbers, everything will bolt right up. The only real fabrication you'll have to do is to make your own push rod. So that's it for today. This one is ready to get back into 5 o'clock 500 again, because I don't do a lot of long distance riding or adventure riding or anything like that. I probably do the most dangerous kind of riding a day. 36 miles each way in the morning and evening traffic on a variety of different motorcycles. But it's fun and I love it. Wouldn't have it any other way. So until next time, y'all keep riding, keep wrenching, and stay crazy.